Good morning. I'm Alexandra Chyczij. I'm the National President of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress. The Ukrainian Canadian Congress brings together under one umbrella all the national, provincial, and local Ukrainian Canadian organizations. Together with our member organizations, the UCC leads, coordinates, and represents the interests of 1.4 million strong Ukrainian Canadians. We are in Ottawa today for our Advocacy Day on the Hill. Over 60 delegates representing Ukrainian organizations and communities from the Pacific to the Atlantic are joining us today. We are very pleased to have delegates from British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, and Nova Scotia. I thank everyone who took the time to work with us today. These dedicated volunteers will be on the Hill today meeting with parliamentarians of all parties, cabinet ministers, and government officials. Our message is simple. We are here to thank Canada for the assistance provided to the Ukrainian people and to urge Canada to help Ukraine win. 1,531 days ago, at 9 p.m. in Ottawa and 4 a.m. in Kyiv, Russia launched a full-scale genocidal invasion of Ukraine. For over 4 years, the Ukrainian people have staved off a larger, well-armed, and ruthless Russian enemy that seeks the annihilation of the Ukrainian state and the destruction of the Ukrainian people. Since 2022, Ukrainian investigators have documented over 230,000 Russian war crimes. These crimes include systemic murder, rape, and torture, abduction and indoctrination of children, the purposeful destruction of civilian infrastructure. These crimes are so sadistic and evil that those who ordered them and committed them must be defeated and brought to justice. If we don't, these crimes will continue as they do every day in the territories currently occupied by Russia. For over 4 years, Ukrainian heroism has inspired the world. Every day, the Ukrainian people pay an unimaginable price for their freedom. The Ukrainian people fight because they must. If Russia stops fighting, there will be peace. If Ukraine stops fighting, there will be no Ukraine. We thank all Canadians for their generosity and support of Ukraine's righteous fight. Canadians have donated millions of dollars, they have welcomed displaced Ukrainians, and we are grateful for over $25 billion in assistance provided by the Government of Canada since 2022. We're also grateful for the most recent announcement of the continuation of Operation Unifier with a commitment of over $2 billion over the next 3 years, and this morning's announcement by Prime Minister Carney of $270 million for military aid for the NATO priority list. Today, the tide of battle is turning in Ukraine's favor. Ukrainian innovation and invention have changed warfare forever. Ukrainian technology in some spheres is ahead of our NATO allies. And today, Ukrainian technicians are deployed to assist the Gulf states in shooting down Iranian drones. We believe that ensuring a strong, free, and democratic Ukraine is critical to Canada's national interest, and we call on the Government of Canada to focus on 3 priorities. First, to continue to increase defense ties by increasing the delivery of military assistance to Ukraine and substantially investing in investment in joint Canada-Ukraine defense production. Secondly, to grow commercial ties, to increase support for Canadian private sector investment in the rebuilding of Ukraine. And thirdly, to promote our shared values, to make Russia pay for its aggression by confiscating Russian assets, by bringing Russian war criminals to justice, by participating in the Special Tribunal on the Crime of Aggression, and to continue Canadian leadership in the International Coalition for the Return of Ukrainian Children. And finally, to support Ukrainian displaced persons who are in Canada by offering them a pathway to permanent residency. In this, our government and Parliament would have the strong support of the Canadian public. Recent polling from Abacus shows that 65% of Canadians support increased military aid to Ukraine. 63% support more financial and humanitarian assistance to Ukraine, and 70% support seizing Russian assets. Once again, I thank all the dedicated volunteers from our community that have taken the time to join us in Ottawa for Ukrainian Canadian Advocacy Day. And I thank all parliamentarians, ministers, and officials who have agreed to meet with us. Thank you. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you. Merci. We will now take a question from a journalist on Zoom. Dylan Robertson, please go ahead.
Hi there. Thanks for taking our questions. I'm wondering if the issue of military-aged men receiving communication from IRCC about their status, if this is anything that the Congress has a perspective on, should Canada be gathering information on if anyone is eligible for military service in Ukraine? Should we be actively sending military men back to Ukraine if they're here on the temporary permit? What is your perspective on that?
Well, we expect all Ukrainians and Canadians to abide by the law of their homeland. So we expect that Ukrainian men will have registered for the draft and have received the appropriate exemptions if they are entitled to them.
Do you have a follow-up, Dylan?
Yeah, could you please expand a little bit on that? Is that just generally about following the law? Is that about support for Ukraine? We have online comments from Ukrainian men who are saying, I came to this Canada to flee the situation there. I guess I'm just wondering the UCC's perspective, if you could just get a bit more into the reasoning.
Well, every citizen of any country can be called upon to defend his or her homeland. Canadians may well face conscription in the future. If this war isn't stopped today or in the near future, we know that Russian aggression will only be encouraged. We face, as Canadians, a direct military threat from Russia to the north through the Arctic. And it is possible that Canadian men and women may be called upon to serve in defense of their country. So we expect that from every national of every country.
Any more questions, Dylan?
Thank you. I was also wondering about the collaboration that you mentioned in the defense industry. We had some hearings about the role that Freeland had taken on and sort of the lack of action that we'd seen from the Canadian defense sector in terms of that type of collaboration within Ukraine on drone technology, on military technology. Some of our allies are quite involved. I'm wondering what you think the main impediments are to having Canadian firms involved in this, and what kind of role the government could be taking to sort of bring about more of those types of partnerships.
Well, we understand that there are negotiations ongoing and that there may be announcements coming shortly, but it would be helpful if the EDC were to provide risk insurance for Canadian firms hoping to invest in Ukraine, whether it's in the defense sector or in the rebuilding of Ukraine.
Thank you. And just lastly, I was wondering about how things have looked since Ms. Freeland left her role. If you're finding, is there enough of a coordination on our policies on Ukraine? Is that run out of PMO? Is that run out of GAC? Or should we be doing more to sort of coordinate all the facets of, reconstruction, of humanitarian, of the diplomatic outreach? Is there a focal point, and do you think the government is structured right now the best way possible to respond to these objectives?
Well, we, of course, are grateful for everything that Canada has done. Prime Minister Carney this morning met with President Zelensky in Armenia. He made a meaningful announcement of an additional $270 million for the priority weapons list. Of course, Canada has now provided over $25 billion in support. Can we do more going forward? Of course. This is a global effort, or at least one that the EU, the UK, and Canada are aligned on. And Ukraine, of course, is grateful for those efforts, but more can be done, and the ultimate test will be when this war ends.
Thank you. This concludes the press conference. Merci, c'est ce qui met fin à cette conférence de presse.